From May 16th to 17th, Rwanda is hosting the 11th edition of the Africa CEO Forum under the theme, At the Table or on the Menu, a critical moment to shape a new future for Africa. This forum will bring more than 2,000 business leaders, policymakers, and captains of industry. And among the participants is the Assistant Secretary General and CEO of the UN Global Compact, Madam Sanda Ojiambo. Welcome to Rwanda.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Is it your first time here in Rwanda?
Not my first time at all, but always a joy to come back.
The UN Global Compact is one of the key partners in this forum. And what are your priorities in this forum?
Right, thank you. And first, allow me to reflect, because it is also a somber moment of reflection for Rwanda. We're still in the period commemorating the 30 years post-genocide. So earlier we shared a moment of a minute of silence and commemoration with colleagues. But yes, we're here for the Africa CEO Forum. And you said it very aptly, you know, if Africa is not at the table, it's at the menu. And we firmly believe as Global Compact, this is the moment. The moments already exist for Africa. It's a moment to really demonstrate the capability of the African private sector and the real role that it will play, not only in growing the African economy, but actually in shaping the growth for the world economies. We firmly believe there's a number of major transitions that are happening in the world. They can't happen without Africa, either its people, its inputs, or its resources. You know, just last year, for example, we hosted the Africa Climate Summit. It was in Nairobi, Kenya. And the political leaders there clearly articulated the climate transition we're all seeking for the world will not happen unless we invest in clean, green energy in Africa. And our resources can allow us to do that. The same with energy, the same with food systems, the same with digital transformation, skills building, and workforce development. So I really, you know, the theme of the Africa CEO Forum truly resonates, because Africa must be at the table in all of these critical discussions. We have the resources, the skills, and the private sector leadership to do so.
The UN Global Compact is looking to launch a network here in Rwanda next year. Why did you choose Rwanda? Right.
So the way that the UN Global Compact works is we build local chapters in countries. We call them local networks. Very important because it allows us first to be close to the businesses that we want to serve and we want to partner and learn from. So we're building our presence on the African continent. We currently have 10 existing chapters, and we've been working here in Rwanda with the support of the UN Resident Coordinator and many private sector leaders to build a chapter in Rwanda. But why Rwanda? In fact, I think we're late to the table, actually, on this one. But Rwanda, you know, the economic growth projections are very strong. We see strong private sector leadership. We see such a strong sense of innovation and embracing digital and digital technology and all it has to offer. We see Rwanda's leadership in gender equality issues and in education and skills building. So for us, it's truly a moment to seize the private sector momentum in country. We've seen some great leadership already from the banking sector, the services and hospitality, retail and transportation. And we want to build that and create a chapter where Rwandan businesses can come together to advance their common priorities for business, but also be a true partner to policymakers, government, and the UN.
With over 10 networks you already have on the continent and other companies you work with around the globe, how do you see them adhering to the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact?
Right. So we believe that the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact are really foundational to helping business be more sustainable and resilient. You know, sustainability is good, but we also have to drive business sense. So our principles help businesses be more competitive, be more resilient, and more sustainable. And I think nowhere have we seen this in the last 3-4 years through the pandemic. No matter where you were, you could have been in Rwanda, you could have been elsewhere on the continent, around the world. We know that businesses suffered. Why? One of the biggest challenges was the sustainability. Our principles can help you do that around how to engage workforces, how to be more future-proofed, more resilient. And so we believe that working with our principles helps businesses do just that.
Shifting from public to private investment is one of the key priorities countries are really advancing to save and rescue SDGs. How do you see the cooperation of the UN Global Compact and the companies you work with contributing to that mission?
right? You know, we did the stock take in September 2023, and as you know, we found that we were not where we wanted to be in progressing the Sustainable Development Goals. I think that even the way the SDGs were formulated in 2015 had a place for the private sector on the table, you know, not simply around, you know, financing, but really in being a solution provider. So the private sector can bring its technologies, its people, its innovations, its speed to market, its access to customers and citizens to solving for the SDGs. In fact, so many of the SDGs are a true business and investment opportunity. We see that in climate and energy. We see that in infrastructure and industry. We see it in sustainable cities. We see it in things like oceans, water, decent work. So the first call is that the private sector needs to invest in the SDGs. I think the global times where we are right now, we know that the public sector is very fiscally squeezed. We also know that the financial architecture is not fit for purpose for countries and economies that need to access finance. So there's a real opportunity to look at, one, yes, reshaping that architecture, but also seeing how to leverage public and private financing very differently. You know, some of the statistics are that there's actually enough capital in the world to finance the SDGs. The challenge is that capital is not going towards the SDGs. It's either in stranded assets, idle assets, or not simply being used in the best way possible to reap that benefit. I think conversations with the private sector around that, developing new financial instruments, bonds and other instruments that can attract private capital would be very important. So I see two big opportunities, seeing the SDGs as an investment tool, but also seeing how we can channel financing more towards the SDGs. No country, no economy can develop without the private sector. I think it's a great opportunity for the private sector to demonstrate its capabilities in terms of business, trade, investment, and aligning to the SDGs. We believe this is most effectively done when private sector comes together. I think it's great to always have, a big force to reckon with. But together, what can the private sector do? We can move financing forward. We can move investments forward. We can move innovation, technology. We can grow workforces, create jobs, and grow incomes. So there's so much that the private sector can do in advancing not just Rwanda's national strategy for transformation, the Africa Union's Agenda 2063, and certainly the Sustainable Development Goals.
Madam ASG, my name is Jeanne Uwimana, and I work for the UN Resident Coordinator here in Rwanda in charge of communications and advocacy. I really thank you so much for your time and to speak to the UN News.
Thank you so much, Yushin. Thank you.